Over the last few patches, Behavior has updated a lot of useless perks that are very interesting to use today. Perks like Quick Gambit, Corrective Action, Predator, and Zanshin Tactics are all perks that were considered pretty useless in the past, but now they are actually decent. However, there is still a long way to go. So let's take a look at some of the worst design perks that desperately need a buff or a rework. And let's start with one of the oldest perks in the entire game, and that is Insidious, which has been a meme tier status since the beginning. This perk was designed for a DbD that was still considered a scary game, so the point was to stand still in order for survivors to come by and jump scare them. However, with the years, DbD has lost its scary factor and has become very competitive. Remember that back when this perk was designed, camping a hook was a viable and developer endorsed thing to do, and nowadays you cannot even do that because of the anti-phase camp mechanic, so by that point Insidious is pretty useless. Insidious perk effect can be used in some meme builds, so I think this should be kept still, but it needs to be a secondary effect instead. I have seen a lot of suggestions saying this, and I think it's a really cool idea. Make Insidious the lethal pursuer version of Undetectable, extending the duration of this effect on any add-on or perk, and not killer powers. This is to prevent Insidious from being an amazing pick on stealth killers. Talking about stealth killers, let's talk about Spine Chill, a perk that was incredibly busted in the past, as it not only made stealth killers completely irrelevant, it also combined with resilience for the Vault Speed build that plagued all YouTube Survivor main content. This perk was temporarily repurposed as an accessibility perk, but this was later removed when the visual heartbeat indicator was introduced. The easiest way to make this perk viable again is to introduce the Vault Speed increase back, as that alone would make it one of the most popular perks in the entire game. However, the devs said that this did not fit the theme of the perk. Instead, what I think would be cool is add an effect where this perk would turn on anytime your aura is being read by the killer, giving you even stronger benefits of faster healing, cleansing, and repair speed. This way, we have a free perk that helps new players know when your aura is being read by the killers, as this is something only players that unlocked Jeff or Lori can do. So, if the killer has Nurse's Calling, you finish your healing faster, or if they have Barbecue and coming your way, you can repair faster and maybe finish the generator before the killer arrives. So this video is called the worst designed perks in DbD, not the worst perks, and Knockout is a great example of this, because the perk itself is actually really good when you use it in a specific scenario, a slug-in match against solo queue. The design of this perk is by all accounts not healthy, and perks like this should not exist in the game. Knockout will hide the aura of a survivor you down with a basic attack, and it will also reduce their recovery speed as well as make them crawl slower for 15 seconds. If you are with friends, you can tell them where you went down, but against solo queue, your body will be hidden for so long that you might just bleed out. And that's the issue with it. Slugging killers like Singularity or Myers can take massive advantage of this perk with basically nothing your solo queue teammates can do, and being left on the ground for 4 minutes is one of the most boring experiences a survivor can have in the game. This perk only exists for slugging matches, as there is literally no other benefit it gives to players using it. I think the easiest solution is to make the aura block also last 15 seconds, or make it so that the more recovered a survivor is, the further away their aura is shown, and that way, this perk would still be garbage design, but not as insufferable as it currently is. Teamwork Collective Stealth is in my opinion the most fun survivor perk out of this video, just to give you an idea of how horrid the quality of the next perks are. But to be fair, the effect is really fun when it works, and it was also recently buffed. This perk will activate after someone heals you, and now both you and that person will not leave scratch marks as long as you are within 16 meters of each other. The buff is a removal of the cooldown, and also a lingering effect where you can stay away for 4 seconds, and if you come back, you get the effect again. The biggest issue of this perk is its concept. In order for it to work, you need to stay with another survivor close together, and in the vast majority of cases, this is very bad, as you can sandbag yourselves accidentally, and also this means as long as the killer is chasing one of you, two survivors are not repairing generators. The only way to use this perk is to bring a gen rush build, focus on generators, and pre-run anytime the killer is coming, so that way they don't know where you went. And let me tell you, that does not sound like a fun time. I would personally rework this perk and completely change its effect. Territorial Imperative is one of the two Huntress perks on this video that are completely flawed and have been some of the worst perks in the game since its introduction. Territorial will reveal the aura of survivors entering the basement anytime you are 24 meters away from it. So, in which situations is this perk useful? The first one is if a survivor enters the basement to open the chest for any reason. The second is if the survivor enters the basement in order to use their invocation perks, which is throwing the match. The third is when a survivor wants to rescue one of their teammates, so this is just a helper at proxy camping. And the worst part is that with very specific builds that you can do with Demogorgon, Hag, and Dredge, there is a way to make the match absolutely miserable. This perk is horrible and should not exist, and as long as the survivor does not have distortion, Darkness Revealed is just significantly better. Instead of buffing this perk, I think making the basement intersync to enter for survivors could make this perk useful, but as it currently is, no survivor will enter the basement willingly more than once. Soul Survivor is another old design perk that has been almost the same since its introduction, and it's one of those perks I think by design are completely horrible. That is because the perk only works when your teammates are sacrificed. So you bring a perk into the game with the idea that already your teammates will die. By the time two survivors are sacrificed, the match is either already over or it's about to be over. And if you want a perk to help you survive and find the hatch, Left Behind with a key is significantly better. Or Wake Up in order to open the exit gates faster and still help your teammates in case they are alive. And why would anyone want to repair a generator when they are the last survivor alive? You will reveal your location to the killer by doing so, or the killer will close the hatch and block all generators. This is just not a fun perk to use. No perk should have the main effect be behind the condition of your teammates dying. I say, make the effects of this perk start working when a survivor is hooked or slugged, and that way you have an aggressive distortion type of perk that will help you save your teammates for those situations where the killer is nearby, and you get to enjoy the effects of this perk throughout the match instead of only after someone dies. Out of all killer perks, Undone is the newest and it belongs to one of my favorite killers, the Unknown. But I cannot deny that this is one of the worst concepts of a perk Behavior has ever created, and this is the clear definition of a win more perk that is still absolutely mediocre for the effect it does. Undone will grant you tokens anytime a survivor misses a skill check, up to 30. For each token, the next time you break a generator, you consume the tokens and block that gen and reduce its progress the same amount of tokens that you had. Then, for some reason, this perk also comes with a cooldown. Now let me remind you that missing a skill check reduces the progress of a generator by 10%. So if you're getting tokens for this perk, you're playing against newbies and your match is already won. Conceptually, this perk is so flawed that it's unbelievable. When people make entire videos of getting all tokens of a perk that is mediocre and it still doesn't perform at best, you know the perk is flawed. Just remove the skill check requirement and make this perk based on literally anything else, like pallets broken or hits to survivors with basic attacks. It would still be worse than Pop Goes the Weasel or Pain Resonance, but at the very least, it would be usable. Red Herring is the only Zarina perk that has never seen the meta, and won't see it with the design it has, as other Deception perks like the Pebble are significantly better. Red Herring will activate once you repair a generator for some seconds. Once you go inside a locker, the generator you were repairing will trigger a loud noise notification as if someone failed a skill check. So already the problem of this perk is that at worst, you're bringing the killer to a generator that has progress, whereas with the Pebble, you can confuse the killer to a place with no generators whatsoever. The only point of this perk is to use it with Blast Mine to attract the killer there, but it's still pretty pointless. This is maybe the third time I say this, but Red Herring should be a perk where you confuse the killer with sounds instead of a notification. Imagine if you could craft a sound recorder with the Red Herring, and you can place it anywhere in the map so it plays the sound effects of a survivor healing, a totem being broken, a chest being searched, or a generator being repaired. That would actually confuse the killer significantly more. It would fit Zarina perfectly, and I really want a perk or item like this in game. As for bringing the killer to generators for Blast Mine, just use the Pebble. It's way better. I have been a Beast of Prey hater since the introduction of this trash tier perk, and I am going to be honest, now that I think about it, having two of the worst perks for killer ever introduced be in the same chapter, which also introduced Death Heart, a meta-defining perk, is actually funny. Beast of Prey will give you undetectable status effects anytime you get Bloodlust. Some people swear by this perk because they say losing the red stain is huge during a chase, and my answer to that is that if you're getting bloodlusted, you are already losing, especially when you consider the fact that this perk comes with the Huntress, possibly one of the worst characters to use this perk on. The funniest part of this perk for me is that on the patch of the Houndmaster, the devs removed the blood point bonus from perks like Distressing and Thrill of the Hunt, but they completely forgot about the Beast of Prey, making it one of the only perks that grants you a BP bonus. I think that is because the other two perks are still useful in some situations, but without the BP bonus, Beast of Prey is absolutely useless. What is crazy to consider is that if the devs buffed this perk to make it give the undetectable effect anytime you enter a chase, it would actually be busted for players that do 1 vs 1, because the red stain is very useful. Dark Theory is another perk I have hated since its introduction, because the name is completely unfitting for the effects of the perk and the character it's related to. This perk, which has a dark and paranormal vibe, only grants you a 2% haste speed bonus inside the Boon area. Now I say only 2%, but 3% was enough to make the game very bad for low tier killers, and that's the problem of this Boon. Make it too much, and we have made for this back in the menu, which will only affect weak killers. Make it too low, and it's just like it currently is, completely useless, and the time investment is not worth it at all. You also need to make sure to loop the killer near the Boon area, so that's another condition. This perk should have a completely new effect that actually fits Yoichi instead of just making him run slightly faster. It's one of the only perks in this video where I think the design itself of giving a speed boost in a specific area is just a horrible idea no matter what, when there is no perfect balance that makes it worth for a survivor to bring and fun for a killer to go against. And since we're talking about boons, let's talk about the perk that Behavior made in case boons became a huge problem, and that is Shattered Hope. The very first free perk introduced in the game after Thrill of the Hunt for over 5 years. Shattered Hope will break the Boon survivor set and reveal the aura of any survivor inside the Boon area. The funny thing is that even when Circle of Healing was at its best, when everyone was bringing it and making the games miserable, nobody used Shattered Hope. And when you think about it, this is a free perk that any player can use that counters a mechanic that is tied behind premium and grindable characters. If there was a free boon that everyone could use, I get the design of this perk, but Shattered Hope is legitimately one of the only perks in the entire game that fully depends on what a survivor will bring into the match, giving you basically zero value on 99% of your matches. This and many more reasons are why I dedicated an entire video where I explained why I think this is legitimately the worst perk in the entire game, and all my points of that video still stand to this day. The effects of this perk should not be the main thing it does, keep it as a secondary effect, but give it a main effect that works in every single match, since this is once again a free perk that beginners will have on their killers. Some casual players might take 100 matches before they even get a single Boon perk. It's just so horribly designed. But in terms of horribly designed, I think we have a new contender, and that is Invocation Treacherous Crows. When Weaving Spiders was released, I thought the concept itself was very interesting, as it was a new gameplay mechanic that the devs were experimenting with, where you go to a very dangerous place in order to get a bonus for the entirety of the match. However, what I was most interested in was combining this invocation with others in order to sacrifice yourself for a massive boost in the match. That's when this perk was added, and it turns out the devs decided to make you invocate separately for each effect, so already bringing 2 invocations is a waste, and imagine bringing a full invocation build. You would be spending 4 entire minutes inside the basement, all while permanently broken. And let's talk about the perk itself. All you get is the aura of the killer will be revealed anytime they scare a crow. Against killers that are undetectable, this perk is completely useless, and most of the times, crows rely heavily on RNG, and you as a survivor might scare them first before the killer does. At least with Weaving Spiders, you get a bonus to generators. This perk only gives you aura reading for 2 seconds. Do you think this is worth the cost of being permanently broken? I do not think so. My only fix is to allow survivors to invoke the other 2 things at the same time, so now you won't waste 2 entire minutes while broken inside the basement. If the devs keep this permanent effect on the perks and also force survivors to do them individually, I do not see a world where these types of perks are used in any way outside of very gimmicky builds made for YouTube content. And those are what are, in my opinion, the worst designed perks in DbD. But let me know if you think there are some that are worse. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.